thank you all for attending. So I'm going to talk today, and I'm going to mix some of our experiences working with clients and also some really interesting data that we're going to present from McKinsey. And before I do that, I just want to make my slide move. Before I do that, I just want to talk about some of the really constants that we're looking to achieve, and I think that most of you are looking to achieve when you're working or providing support to your clients. And one of the first, which is much more available now than it ever used to be in the past, is this idea that a system can be always available. So digital channels being there 24/7, and also the expectation that the solutions that you're going to be providing to your customers will be intelligent. They'll know about your customers, and they'll be working to make the process as simple as possible for your customers. And the concept of being present in the conversation is that it's always going back and forth quickly, so people don't have to wait a long time for that answer, and that it should be a positive tone. And then obviously from the customer's perspective, what's most important is that there's a timely resolution to any issue they have. So when we think about these traditional channels, there are the ones really divided into two parts. There's voice, there's people, there's live chat, where they involve people actually working at the end of some system or other. And then there are the digital channels where they're more self-service focused and part of that 24/7 group. So what we've done is we've done a kind of analysis based on availability, how intelligent is it, present, warm, and timely, those criteria I mentioned, of these different channels. And as soon as you can do this, you obviously get these sort of high-value people-based channels, but then where they're weak is to do with the availability, because it's a person that's doing the work. And then you move into the digital channels, where obviously the availability is great, but then things like FAQs, the actual delivery of the solution is not very good. And then you move into some of these newer ones where there are some good content, but then they're often suffering from things like forums and social, from the timely aspect of it, because there's no guarantee as to when there's going to be a response. And then at the bottom here, we're seeing SMS becoming a more important channel. And the reason we've put the availability as weak is because it isn't offered very regularly, but it does have some good characteristics in terms of what it can deliver to customers. So if we start with a poll, and the poll that we would like to conduct is, what do you believe is the most popular channel? So the reason that I always find this interesting is because everybody has a sort of different perspective of this. And it used to be that if you were in a room and there were 10 people, 9 of them would say, well, the most popular channel is that people want to call, and they want to have that call answered within one ring, and they want someone on the end of the line that's going to be able to answer their question. But more and more, we see people veering towards, no, the most popular is going to be a digital channel, where the customer is able to self-serve. And if I now sort of take those 10 people in the room, to some degree it's because of the people I'm talking to, but typically 9 or more than 9 are saying, no, people want to self-serve, and our objective is to make these self-serve, these digital channels, more available to our customers. So Karen, how are we doing with that poll?
I'm about to share it.
Okay, cool.
60% said traditional to digital is the most popular, followed by traditional with 30%.
Sorry, can you say that once more?
60% voted that traditional to digital is the most popular channel, followed by traditional at 30%.
Okay. Okay. So now another dimension to this is what yields the highest satisfaction. So if you look at those different options that are in the poll, what do you think is the most pleasing to customers? And I always kind of find this an interesting one, because deploying our systems, there's always a debate about how do you measure satisfaction, and is it a survey, is it by actually seeing if people went to another channel after having used a virtual agent channel. And then there's always this discussion about how different channels get measured differently. So if you have a live chat, someone probably sends you an email afterwards and says that it satisfies you, and if you've been talking to someone in a call center, you're almost inevitably going to get that email afterwards saying, did this satisfy your need? But if you just go to a website, it's very unlikely you'll get surveyed. So there's always this discrepancy between the kind of measuring mechanisms across these channels. But Karen, have you got an answer to that one?
1 second. Here we go. So, we have a three-way tie. 18% said traditional to digital, and the rest said 27% for the other categories.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. So this data is provided by McKinsey, and I must admit, I had not seen this until very, very recently. So I'm just going to leave it on the screen for a while, but in essence, it's talking about these traditional channels and where people stay in the traditional one, and you can see the share there is 11%. And then where people are coming from digital into traditional, this is some kind of escalation, and then where people are going from traditional to some kind of digital escalation, and then where people are on a kind of digital-only stream. So you can see from this that a relatively small number of people are just using traditional channels. And the biggest share is people that are starting in digital and then they're escalating to some kind of traditional, and then followed by people starting in traditional and then going digital. But then we've got that 15%, which, interestingly, comparing the very top to the very bottom, more people are going via the digital route than the traditional only route. But the thing that I found most interesting is on the right-hand side is that move in the satisfaction. So all of those people that are wedded to the telephone, that is the least high satisfaction of all of these channels. And the highest satisfaction, as you can see, is where people are getting a digital-only answer, which is obviously entirely self-serve. So surprising results. And I'll see if I can actually get some more background information that went with this chart, and we can provide that to the people that attended as well. So if we kind of have that in our mind, and then we look at that information in a slightly different way. So we know that customer satisfaction on the right-hand side of this chart is at its lowest in this traditional environment and at its highest in this digital section of this diagram. And then the cost, which wasn't considered in the previous chart, is obviously the highest in the least satisfactory channel. So, what we're seeing there is perhaps a complete paradigm shift from what people might have assumed, certainly if they have a kind of old school approach. And then you have all of these different kinds of digital channels that people have deployed. So what I wanted to do now is just run through some of these channels and talk about what we at Creative Virtual have done to enhance the ability of people to self-serve within those channels. And the first, and it's quite an interesting one, is this idea of an employee mobile assistant. So one of our clients came to us having deployed a system on their website and said, could we create an employee version of this? So if an employee is talking to someone anywhere, they can just pick up the smartphone and potentially get answers to give to that person that's just saying, oh, I've got a problem with my XYZ service. And then with the 1-800, we've begun to deploy our virtual assistants to help agents to answer questions in a timely and consistent fashion. And the other really exciting thing we're doing is we're going to announce a speech-to-intent system, and we're going to be able to use that to prompt the agents with solutions based on what customers are asking. So all focused on making that channel more effective. And a very similar concept within web chat, to use what's been asked by the question to push to our engine to then suggest answers to the agent. And then traditionally, we've been in this virtual agent, virtual assistant market, and the big changes that are happening there are the way that the information is presented. Far more attention is being paid to the tone, which is assisting with adoption. But the biggest thing is personalization there. So people respond far better to personalized information where it's easy for them to get from point A to point B. So an effortless solution. And the other thing that we've recently introduced is what we call semantic search. So it's kind of a step between search and a virtual agent, and is a very, very simple solution to deploy, very little work required to deploy, and as I say, sits in effectiveness between standard search and the virtual agent. We've also deployed our systems within forums, so looking at conversations that are happening in forums, and if the engine has an answer, posting it into the forum. And we've seen an incredibly positive response, and it's kind of a weird sight to see this virtual assistant getting kudos in a forum. The systems are also available within Facebook, so the vPerson technology can run within Facebook as an application, or it can obviously be a link that would pop out of the window. And then finally, we're just about to go live with one of our clients in an SMS environment. And the way the system is going to be deployed is kind of a gateway. So someone asks a question, and if the virtual agent can provide an answer, it gives an answer, or it can escalate someone to someone on live chat or to callback or any of those human channels. So given all of the things that are happening, you can then sort of see how this triangle is being affected. So the virtual assistant technology is assisting in all of these environments, these digital environments, and it's made the bottom half of this triangle far larger. So we've been able to provide more high satisfaction, low cost solutions, and ever diminishing this traditional part of the triangle at the top. And obviously that's a win for the customers and also a win for our clients that are reducing their cost of those transactions. And then just looking at the scalability of these different kinds of solutions, the people-based channels, whether it's in a store or on a phone or through live chat, these are the kinds of numbers of contacts you can get per hour. And obviously the virtual assistant, it is as scalable as you want, but just illustratively, you can see the vast number of transactions that you can be processing at any one time. So that's really what I wanted to say. And so the kind of takeaway from this is that there's obviously an opportunity which is based on cost and also client desire to increase the ability to provide self-service. And the better that self-service is, the happier your clients are going to be, the more they're going to adopt it. And the way that we've traditionally worked with our clients is by literally looking at the conversations that are taking place between their customers and their support environments. And that can be through live chat. It can be by looking at conversations that are taking place in a call center. And by doing that, we're able to look and say, well, what percentage of these conversations are about this topic? And what percentage of those could have been resolved using our technology? And you then end up with a very nice little spreadsheet that lets you see that by covering topic A, topic B, topic C, you could reduce the number of people that are having to speak to a person by X%. And then from that, we're in a position to develop an ROI model. And I think over the last year, we've won business. Frank will tell you about it in a moment, the specific customers, but all of the clients we've worked with, we've started by running a pilot. And that pilot began with this review of the conversations, developing the ROI model, and then running the pilot to prove that's what actually happens in reality. So just before I hand over to Frank, I'm just going to play this video that was actually, or it was created by Time Warner Cable, who are one of our clients. And they produced this video to promote the virtual assistant to their customers.
At Time Warner Cable, we value our customers' time and are committed to delivering effortless service that works on your terms. That's why we created the Ask TWC Virtual Assistant, a handy way to get immediate answers to any question you have about your Time Warner Cable service. Instead of picking up the phone to call us, now you can type your questions directly to the virtual assistant using your own words. Ask TWC works on your smartphone, tablet, or computer, and there's no more guessing which search terms to use. Just type whatever you need help with, however you want to say it, and whenever it's convenient for you. With Ask TWC, you'll get answers instantly. And if you need a representative, you can chat with one in the same window. Give Ask TWC a test drive now at twc.com/support or download the My TWC app on your smartphone or tablet. Time Warner Cable. We're making connections that matter.
Okay. So, Frank, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you're on.
Great. I think, thank you, Richard. That was really excellent. And what I love about showing the Time Warner Cable video is it reflects sort of the maturity of the life cycle of our solutions with our clients and where clients can wind up once they've worked with us. And it's one of the reasons why we've mentioned a Gartner Cool Vendor in smart machines. And sort of smart machines, this idea of engaging with something, and you can go ahead to the next slide, Richard, in sort of natural language to automate a process and elicit a result. Gartner's saying 30% of these interactions will occur with smart machines by 2018, in regards to customer support and even sales, any kind of these sort of support type conversations. So if you go ahead to the next slide, what we're seeing from that sort of high resolution rate, high satisfaction involvement is that it coincides with the idea that customers prefer to get support online as opposed to calling in. And so that satisfaction rate, when you can give them an answer, and if you turn to the next slide, and also make sure that you can leverage this idea of a smart customer journey, so all of the moments of truth and interactions and engagements they've had with the brand before they've gotten to that point, you want to be able to leverage that. So 70% of consumers also agree that repeating my information or repeating my issue down a service channel is not something that exactly elicits a good response or a good experience. So if you go ahead to the next slide, customer expectations of you being available in digital as a brand or as an entity or as a support or sales environment, it's certainly wrapped into these concentric circles that sort of say, I want my information, I want it now, I want it to be sort of resolved timely, make it as effortless as possible, and be agnostic in regards to any device that I come from, and leverage my interaction history no matter what the case may be. So when I meet you at this moment of truth, give me what I need in an easy way, and then those expectations aligned with resolutions will result in loyalty and revenue. And so Time Warner Cable is a great example of, to be honest, we're at the point where in telco cable wireless, it's industry standard. I mean, it's a best practice to have a virtual assistant solution like ours. So from a performance data perspective, one of the questions you got to ask yourself is, how are users engaging right now on my digital assets like websites? What are people trying to do, and can they find it, and are they successful? A lot of times this data can be found from opinion lab surveys as well as live chat transcripts. And ultimately, when you've created solutions that can answer those questions or help to close those gaps, you can have things like, for example, Verizon, where we're not just doing sort of customer support types environment, as Richard mentioned in the past, but we're actually doing selling. So this is a proactive digital marketing engagement where, based on inactivity on a FiOS page, we're simultaneously popping virtual assistant and live agent. Now, on the left-hand side, you can see that there's some sort of early part of the sales flow or non-immediate revenue-generating questions that are being asked that are best handled in a self-service environment. Why is availability at my address, or how can I qualify for FiOS? And then if a customer prefers a live channel through digital engagement and wants to speak to an agent right away, they can go ahead and click right now and chat with live agent. So if you go ahead, Richard, a quick poll that we have, and I'm not sure if we enabled this poll online, Karen, or is this just more of a conceptual question for the audience?
More of a conceptual question for the audience.
Okay, so as we're talking through this talk track, it's good to think about what percentage of customers actually chose the virtual agent, and from that sort of left to right UI and with the button. And it's great in validation that 40%, and it's actually been rising the last time I looked at this, chose the virtual agent. So even when presented side by side with a live person, customers' preference to self-serve and just go ahead and elicit the information on their own, it's pretty significant, the trend. We were attributed for selling, multiple millions of dollars of FiOS through Verizon last year through what's called self-assisted channels. So we're, when you think about the ROI of these tools, like Richard alluded to earlier, when we're actually revenue generating, it becomes a sweet spot for us. So, but ultimately, whether it's sales or support, this idea of effortless customer experience is important. So when you can connect to an API, and if you look on the left right of Ask Time Warner Cable, and this is the older version of their UI, you can see asking a question as simple as, how can I find my nearest TWC store? In the initial sort of launch of the product, we had taking them to a store locator page where they could go ahead and access that information. So almost the VA as traffic cop tool. Ultimately, customers want the answer easy at that inflection point, at that digital engagement moment. So that CSAT score was in the 20% range. What we did is integrated with their API with a decision tree where we could elicit more information and say, well, what kind of store do you want to find out about? Is it somewhere where you can return equipment? Is it somewhere where you can buy services at a retail location? And once we get that information, and either based on a cookie or based on an integrated solution, if we're in the authenticated environment, we can say this is the nearest store to you and provide that information right there at that moment of truth. And you can see the customer satisfaction rate went up to 70%. So anywhere that you can leverage context, content, and history, as well as APIs, we can provide a more seamless, easy response. And Rich, you can go ahead to the next slide. Oh, okay. And so the question, as we had before, was, are they satisfied? And yes, of course, the more seamless you can make it, the more satisfaction you're going to have. So one of the other things we do with Time Warner Cable and all of our customers is create decision trees or conversation flows to elicit true smart customer journeys to provide responses where clarifying questions are needed. So this right-hand side is a Visio diagram that exists in our back-end toolkit called vPortal, which allows you to manage all of this digital engagement and cross-channel interaction goodness and stores all that information in regards to API scripting. So the question here is, I forgot my username or I forgot my password. As you can imagine, in the cable environment or in the travel and hospitality world for Intercontinental Hotels, or even for Chase, one of our financial services brands, it could mean a litany of different things. So the VA is going to walk you through that path, and we've gone ahead and created that. And what we can actually do once it's up and running in vPortal is those lines of demarcation that show the different flows within that Visio diagram will thicken and provide live-time actionable reporting in regards to how many people are dropping off at which point, survey scores for different branches of that conversation flow. So everything we do comes back to that collaborative partnership that Richard talked about at the beginning of today's presentation in regards to creating solutions that actually provide resolutions in a meaningful way and constantly tracking against the voice of the customer and improving that solution over time. And our consultancy, as well as vPortal from a technology standpoint, allows you to do that across all of these channels. Go ahead, Richard, to the next slide. One great example of that is Intercontinental Hotel Group. So Intercontinental Hotel Group, and they own brands such as Holiday Inn Express, Crown Plaza, Hula Lux over in the UK, and now Climpton. What they did was they actually swept out a page that they had called Customer Care. And this idea of being able to build a knowledge base, not from static content or FAQs that may or may not be working and that are driven by clicks, but actually building solutions and conversation flows mapped to the actual outcomes or desires of your customers is key. And that's what Intercontinental Hotels Group did. So they swept out their customer care page. We put it up with the top driving 150 to 200 solutions. And then we let the customers sort of engage with it, because what we found with our solution is that the ability to pivot on a dime and the ability to take customer information or customer response and then craft an experience that's tailored to them is key. And this has been an amazing tool for IHG. They're staying somewhere in the neighborhood of 82% digital containment. So this was formerly a page that had some static FAQs and some phone numbers for support elements. Now customers are getting in there and actually getting resolutions and going about their day. It's been an incredible success story for us. And I think we're at the point where, much like telco, cable, wireless, travel and hospitality has now evolved into an industry, and we're proud to say we've been part of that. We're having this type of technology and this type of virtual assistant tool is really a best practice for digital engagement. And one of the keys about, once they deployed is can the reporting and analytics actually show what are people asking about? So we can see through unfiltered voice of the customer, these are the top driving issues, whether it be reservations or payments or rewards. And you want to craft an experience that elicits the tailored outcomes that you desire as a win-win for the business and the customer along those lines in that reporting. All that reporting and insight comes within vPortal. So you're constantly tuning the system based on the customers and the outcomes you're providing. You can go ahead and continue to click. So one of the primary measures of ROI for us is, of course, an easy win for us is call deflection. I talked about revenue generation as well. And we are keen on, as Richard said, piloting and then actually demonstrating the use case and the demonstrable ROI based on that. So we want to connect things to an in-conversation helpfulness survey where we use that to tune the answers and make sure that the solutions being provided are helpful. We're actually going to cross-reference things like at Verizon Wireless, their SMDR records, which is a jargony term for live chat and call details. So once the customer gets a solution, have they called or chatted with us within 48 hours? So all of these live chat and call center stats, we actually want to hold our solution accountable. And we've even been in models where we have pay-for-performance pricing. We're very confident on the solution value that this can drive. And the conversation has changed for us. We're definitely in a position where our solution and the maturity of it and its demonstrable results and our authority as the world leader in this space allows us to have this collaborative partnership with clients where we have mutual skin in the game to elicit these results. So we're keen on the metrics and making sure that our data is aligned with client KPIs, and we're delivering on those KPIs together. That shared collaborative approach and definition of success is key. And you can see here's a screenshot of sort of us. Some of our clients will marry with their existing data warehouse tools. So here we're actually tracking with their site catalyst information to take a look at these are the actual call-in rate deflections that we're giving the VA. It's not an abstract thing for us. It's proven, demonstrable, and actionable. And that's one of the things we're constantly holding ourselves accountable for. And so what does that mean for us, to sort of dovetail it into what our vision is? It's very important to us that we're allowing customers to meet us at all of those moments of truth and coming as they are, and have us have the intelligence within our Smart Help tool to leverage where they've been previously, all of those contextual APIs or cookies or however else you can know to drive at that first interaction resolution. Get it right the first time, provide effortless, seamless solutions and outcomes. And when not, and when they need to be escalated, do even that in an intelligent way and make sure that not only are we trapping the voice of the customer, but for Time Warner Cable and Intercontinental Hotels and some other brands across the globe, and I know we've won some awards for it, actually doing it for the call center agents themselves. We've been keen on collecting voice of the agent as well and connecting that whole journey from digital engagement tipping point of the process to actually connecting with agents, making sure it's all done intelligently and effortlessly. And all of this is wrapped around, again, that idea of constantly improve the tool based on the analytics that you're seeing, the outcomes that you're tracking, and having a semblance of machine learning for sure, and then also allowing some humans to come in and pivot on a dime and see what the real-time conditions are and make updates when necessary, and vPortal allows that. And so here are the brands some of the brands that we're working with across the globe. Not all of our brands are represented because some we don't put out there, although the public-facing solutions like Chase. But here in the U.S., we've had incredible success across many verticals: travel, hospitality, financial services, telco, cable, wireless, retail, you name it. It's a solution that can meet a lot of sweet spots in regards to delivering on the promise of customer support whenever and however a customer likes it. And again, what wraps it all together for us in regards to being able to deliver across all those channels and all those verticals is giving our customers a collaborative tool that allows to distill things into usable nuggets of actionable data and allow business users to work in the tool to improve that system. So you don't need to be a scripting expert or a Python expert to work in our vPortal system. If you understand your business and you're looking to create an organic, living support and sales tool that customers can work with, we're going to give you the idea of setting up workflow management tools, auditing and reporting history, see how the knowledge and content is performing and how the customers are feeling about the tool, and then continue to personalize and granularly segment elements based on business need, based on line of business, based on geographical market, based on channel modality. All of those variables, that litany of things that can comprise one consumer's engagement with a brand, can all be managed in vPortal, and you can have reporting and also that administration in the same spot. And that's what allows our fully omni-channel journey. You can see we're working now with our brands as well as not just from a digital engagement perspective, but in SMS, in IVR, in social media and Facebook. Here with Autodesk, we're providing not just integration into systems to allow for personalized content, but here, when you talk about Gartner Smart Machines, we're actually doing process flow and process integration. So here we're validating serial numbers for Autodesk, and then a system that took agent intervention and took a few business days now is handled in seconds. So we're validating serial numbers, pushing and pulling information in both Salesforce.com as well as Siebel, handling work item routing so that these serial codes can be validated and the new activation code can be generated so the customer can install it on another machine. In the same instance, Autodesk has innovated in, and Richard mentioned, Lithium community forums. So here, it's a complex product set, and it's a great use case for us. So there are all kinds of error codes that might occur or different elements in regards to AutoCAD software at Autodesk. Here, there are power users of the community forum that can provide that human touch and that collaborative knowledge sourcing that community forums can do. But our virtual assistant here, they've branded it internally ILAR. ILAR can monitor the boards and provide auto solutions based on recognition of those intents. And we're matching a great number of the intents that are going on the board. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of greater than 70% of some of the issues that are presented on the board. The VA can take a stab at it and say, hey, I know what error 10 is. Here's the solution. Did this help you? And it's a great way. The one thing about community forums is the SLA is wide. So if we can try to help pare that down and help customers at the moment of truth, it's only going to breed loyalty and satisfaction among the customers. Along that same way, again, however smart you can make it, however you can integrate it. Chase, I think, is on the next slide. They're providing profile-based integration. So there we're integrated to their CRM, but just from a product profile perspective. So if you log into Chase and we're deployed as a natural language search solution, and you ask things like, what are my annual fees? Well, it's going to know the products that you have and elicit sort of that conversation flow when I showed that D-tree editor earlier in the process to get to that one right answer, that one appropriate version of the truth, and drive those resolution rates. Chase we're also doing in Spanish as well, and all of that goodness and content and that digital engagement that occurs in English is occurring in Spanish, and it's, again, one of our fortes. Along that same integration route and multi-channel route or omni-channel route in social media and National Rail, if you can go ahead to the next slide, Richard, we've gone ahead and we talked about monetizing the VA interaction in regards to bio sales. Here in National Rail, we have channel preference. You can go into Facebook and engage with Lisa and find things out like from an API or personalization information. Are there any delays with current trains? But you can actually even say, I want to take a train from London to Bristol on the next train today, and have that interaction within Facebook, within the channel of choice. It's the same as the web experience, all managed within vPortal. And then when it comes time to that moment of truth, when you're ready to monetize and buy that train ticket based on the information or conversation that you've had, we can go ahead and pop you out and you can actually monetize that interaction. And so this sort of myriad of ways that you can deploy this technology and engage on this roadmap of digital engagement maturity, it all still comes down to that refrain that we said earlier and that Richard alluded to, sort of pilot, trial, engage with your customers, trust them to tell you where you need to pivot, and then do you have the power to pivot? And we've had incredible success with this. And as a great action item for anyone who's on this webinar that's engaging with us, we're happy to do this with any customer verbatim that's available. It's an incredible analysis tool that doesn't just confine itself to our tool, but actually gives, again, I always use that unfiltered voice of the customer, the unfiltered view into the feelings and engagements of your customers with your digital assets right now, and with your support assets, whether it's voice calls or chat calls. Okay. So I hope that was a good recap for the event, and look forward to the roundtable.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Richard. And just as a quick reminder, you can ask a question by posting it in the question box if you haven't done so already, or join the conversation live by raising your hand using the yellow hand icon. And some of you have already sent in some questions, so we'll just jump right in, but feel free to ask more. So the first question here, Frank, I think this might be for you. When talking about developing an omni-channel solution, especially when tackling social and mobile, how does Creative Virtual help create consistency in messaging across channels and departments? We're challenged by silos, legalities, and complex approval processes.
Yeah, the easy answer is, from a technology standpoint or solution standpoint, is vPortal. So our backend toolkit was really built in regards to client demand because they needed to have that ability. How do we segment things by business area? How do we re-leverage or repurpose existing knowledge while at the same time segmenting based on the criteria or compliancy guidelines of a particular unit? When you think about Chase and card versus retail banking, or you think about Verizon in regards to logged in billing authenticated customers and public facing VA. So all of that can be managed within vPortal. And then from a workflow or administrative tool, we want to go ahead and give people certain permission-based logins to allow them to manage it. So I think, I'd answer that question almost, one, with a technology solution that we provide, and then two, an understanding and expertise in the Fortune 500 that it's a collaborative process and partnership that we can help customers to enable that. And ultimately, the question is, are the tools that the customer has in regards to whomever asked that question, are they in place to allow for that segmentation and cross-pollination when appropriate, but also sort of the flexibility that's required, because there's just so many variables in regards to content, line of business, and also channel modality in regards to presentation. But luckily, we're able to do that, and that's why kind of we showed that sort of wide breadth on today's call.
So, something I'd kind of add to that, Frank, is we've seen our greatest success where the group that we're working with manages more than one channel. And historically, there'd be the web team, there'd be the mobile team, there'd be the live chat team, there'd be the call center team. And in big organizations, it was very difficult to get that commonality to be deployed across those channels. But with those traditional structures kind of breaking down, we have a client, in fact, it's Time Warner Cable, who the people we work with manage live chat, they manage mobile, and they also manage the VA on the website. So we've got 3 channels there that we can deploy this common system across, and it has made an enormous difference. And what's kind of interesting is almost like success breeds success, because once you get that volume of consistency, senior management looks and says, well, if we can do it there, can we do it in the call center too? So we're seeing more and more that decisions about this kind of technology are taking place higher in organizations, where there is that ability to say, yes, this is something where I control all of these channels, and that consistency is bringing amazing value to customers and also reducing our costs. So more and more, it's not just a technology solution, it's a kind of organizational solution based on the success that people are having with the technology.
Okay. So to piggyback off of the technology question, this question says, we have a number of systems that need to effectively talk to each other in order to provide meaningful information to our customers. How complex is the integration and setup process for your solution? In order for us to figure out how to deliver the right information to our customers.
Who's answering that, Frank?
Oh, I thought you were taking that one, Richard. I'm sorry, because I took the last one.
I'm happy to do it. I'll give you a break because you've been doing so much chatting.
All right.
So I guess that answer, sort of as often with these questions, it varies from situation to situation. So that example that Frank showed, where when someone is on Time Warner Cable's site, they're being cookied. So we know what location they're in. So in that example of where is the nearest store, it's very easy for us to pick up that data and see that they're in Manhattan and the zip code, and then push that into their store locator system and come back with a list of stores. Very, very simple and incredibly powerful, as Frank showed. And then there are other situations, almost looking at the other end of the scale of that example with Autodesk, where the way that system works is they have an activation system. And when the activation fails, that's when the virtual agent is kind of initiated to help the person find a solution to their problem. And again, as Frank said, the data that we need is sitting in Salesforce and also in Siebel. So we've used the web services in both of those systems to develop a solution that can look to validate the customer. It can then look to validate the license. And then within our system, there's some logic. that basically says, if this person has validated more than or activated more than one system within this period of time, they can't have an activation code, and our system then creates a case in Salesforce that then gets followed up by a person. They all say yes, they can have the activation code. It provides the activation code. So there's quite a lot of integration that has to take place with those web services. And you guys know this, but it's not just the creating of it, it's the maintaining of it. And web services change, systems get updated. But totally feasible to do, and it's almost like we're acting in these situations like conversational middleware. And as in any situation, there's always an evaluation of the benefit of doing that integration in terms of customer satisfaction and reduced amount of work that's going to be required to provide that resolution to the customer. So like any other decision that you make before making a business investment. And I should just say a little bit about the technology. The way that we're doing that is we have a Python interpreter which is built into our system. So at any point in any process, we can say, okay, we want to go and look up data somewhere. Based on that data, we want to do something different. And that is really one of the greatest strengths of this system compared, say, to a traditional search system that basically sort of gives an answer and then goes away. This system is built around this concept that it understands it has to go and do something, and then based on the information it's given, either by the user providing answers to questions or going away and gathering information, it will change the ultimate solution that is presented to the customer. So, definitely they're very, very simple, they're more complex, but if you can look at it and say customer satisfaction or reduced amount of work, that's exactly what it is we're trying to do.
Okay. So we have a question, how easy or difficult is it to implement? And will it require a lot of internal resources to get up and running?
I'll take that one, Richard. It's really easy at the moment because of the innovation that we've had and the learnings that we've had over the last few years. So I think that right now we're at a point with our semantic enablement capabilities, and Richard mentioned sort of semantic FAQs at one point in the presentation. The idea that we can sort of have something out of the box that can leverage our natural language library to connect the synapses of intent, if you will, to answer questions, allow us to build things quite rapidly. And there's kind of an 80-20 rule there. We know that relatively quickly we can stand up a system that can, based on customer verbatim, whether it be live chat transcripts or voice call transcripts, that can answer or understand customers and provide solutions, for, again, maybe 20% of your questions are being hit 80% of the time. And those are the ones you want to sort of make sure that you're doing additional scripting around or additional personalization. But a lot of the other ones can be handled out of the box based on those customer verbatims and live chat transcripts. So the ability to build things off the way you're interacting with your customers right now has been huge for us. And then as regarding the maintaining of the system, then moving forward also becomes easily, because what you're accounting for based on the voice of the customer is solving for the additional items that customers are telling you need to either provide a more mature response or a more interactive response or elicit a different outcome. So we're in a place right now from a maturity standpoint for our collaborations with clients where it's a lot easier.
And if I was to add specifics for that, we deployed for a client at the end of last year, and based on live chat transcripts, we deployed the system in less than 2 months. So we've developed really strong analytical tools so we can use live chat transcripts or verbatims, the call center, to establish what the topics are, what the solutions that are being offered are, and also the different ways that people are asking those questions. And it's that has enabled us to transform this from a task that would typically take months to one that we can accomplish within weeks.
Yeah, it's 6 weeks in that scenario that you described, Richard, for sure.
So Richard, in an earlier slide, IVA first call resolution rates for virtual agents range between 30 to 78%. What makes an IVA more successful in first call resolution?
That's a good question. So it really depends on the problem that it is that we're trying to solve. And if I think about an example like a financial services, if I think about Chase, in that situation, a very, very high percentage of the questions are either to do with how do I find that page, how do I get navigated to that page, or how do I get given an answer to a relatively simple question. So, and this isn't unique to Chase, but the most popular question on any financial services website is, what's my routing number? And obviously, you can answer that question either by pushing someone to somewhere to then find the answer themselves, or by actually delivering that answer right there and then. And going back to the example that Frank showed of TWC, we know that the easier we make it for the customer, the higher satisfaction will be. So for a question like that, if you just push them to a page, you're probably going to see a satisfaction of about 30%. But if you give them the answer, you're going to see satisfaction of 80%. So anything which is to do with pushing a page or just providing simple information, the more there is of that, the higher the satisfaction will be in the system. And in the other extreme, if you take an example it could be any telco, where you can get some really straightforward questions, which are those kind of where or tell me kind of questions. But the ones that are more difficult are the troubleshooting questions. And I think probably the classic one that we see is my email isn't working. And then you get into one of those decision trees that Frank was showing that we use for I've lost my password, and you're basically just working with the people that answer these questions in the call center, and you're saying, well, what's the likelihood of it being this? Well, let's ask that question first. And typically in those situations, if you can satisfy 20% of the people, you might be very happy, because there are lots of complex issues that are out there. So if I had to sort of sum up one word, it's the solvability of the environment and of the questions that dictates what that percentage is going to be.
Okay. So, Frank or Richard, can you explain more about how IVAs are used as agent-facing support?
Sorry, I didn't hear. Can you say that again, Karen?
Sure. Can you explain more about how IVAs are used as agent-facing support?
I still missed that word before, support. I'm not sure whether it's the line.
You're talking about call center agents, Karen, correct?
Call center, yes, call center agent support. So how do IVAs work in conjunction with the call center and provide support directly to the agent?
Sure, I'll take that one. So we started off by really providing it as an enhanced knowledge management tool for call center agents. And the thing that we were immediately struck by is lots of existing knowledge management systems in call centers work on what are described as articles. So somebody might be using search to find kind of search terms within an article. And let's assume they get to the right article. They then have to read the article and possibly interpret what it means to be able to provide the solution to the customer that's on the phone or on live chat. And that's obviously a long and difficult process for the agent. So what we did is we started to look at these verbatims as we've been talking about and saying, okay, there are a lot of people asking this specific question. So from that analysis, we changed the whole way that the agents work. So rather than looking at articles, they're basically asking questions and they're getting exact answers to those questions. And it might be that the supporting article is available to the agent, but the goal is for the things that get asked regularly, they just get an answer there and then. And this is particularly powerful for agents that are new. And given the turnover of agents, there are a lot of people in call centers that are new. So being able to increase the first call resolution, the customer satisfaction from those new agents using that methodology was initially key. And we're taking this a stage further, where we're using the tool to actually suggest answers to live chat questions that are posed to agents. So take that example. Somebody might be asking in live chat, where's the nearest store? the virtual agent can actually suggest there and then, even before the agent has done anything, what the answers are to that question. They can just click on one of those, push that back to the end user. So assisting live chat, that's what we're doing in that way. And I think I said earlier, what we're about to do is use our speech to intent system to listen to the conversations that are taking place between a customer and agent, and then being able to suggest answers based on the questions that the customers are asking of the agents. And then the next thing we're going to be able to do is actually transform the way that an IVR works. So rather than it just being a kind of answer of very simple questions and navigational tool, to actually enable people to ask those whole sentence questions, and then all of the data, all of the natural language, all of the integration that is currently available in these web-based systems is going to be available in the IVR. So people are going to have their expectations tremendously raised of what they can actually achieve by talking to an automated system compared to having to always talk to someone. So I think going forward, there are going to be fewer and fewer people just hitting 000, and there are going to be people who will begin to expect that the IVR can be intelligent.
Okay. Have you found that your customers have been able to reduce call center staff by employing IVAs, or are they more focused on increasing agent productivity?
Do you want to talk about some recent examples, Frank?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variables in play there, but what's great, some tangible examples, and the previous question was about using it on the call center agent side. And on the call center agent side, what we've seen for, not just sort of web-facing or customer-facing, we've seen people measure stats like call deflection, of course, and chat deflection on the front end. And on the back end, we've seen average handle time, FCR, or first call resolution, truck rolls for a telco cable wireless company. We've seen ROI value be shown in both directions. And so we've seen some staff reduction, maybe not in the ways that people would expect. We've seen more efficient resource allocation around maybe we do less onshoring. We're able to bring more people, offshoring that is, and bring more people domestic. Maybe we're able to sort of repurpose agents and address social media. So what customers are able to do from a labor perspective and labor calculation is operate more efficiently, and it's because of that, that chat deflection goodness, that call deflection goodness, and because we're improving sort of resolution rates even for sort of sales chat agents, because in the Verizon Fios example, we're able to be smarter about how we're deploying resources. So we definitely see the opportunity for headcount reduction, but what I've seen tangibly with the clients in which I consult is more of a shift of priorities and being able to take that idea of putting the customers first and just doing it more efficiently and smarter. So sometimes it's, dropping a 500-seat call center that's offshore and maybe bringing 100 more onshore. So it's those sort of the symbiotic back and forth relationship.
Great. And I think we can end with this question that may sum up what to do next. How do I make a business case for an IVA and prove that we need to integrate more digital channels with our traditional ones? I think that might be for you, Frank.
Sure. I mean, it's almost how do you not. So it starts for us with, as Richard pointed out before, sort of that solvability idea. So in a consulting engagement that we would engage in, we would say before, let's build the business case around where we're going to deploy and what issues we're going to solve. And sort of the ROI standpoint in that 80-20 rule comes around where are the highest moments of truth where we can meet customers with resolutions that actually work, and let's meet them there and build a business case around that. So a lot of times that comes into sort of resolution rates and sort of deflection rates, if you will, or call deflection rates, but it's really around those resolutions and that volume perspective. And then also, where can we generate revenue? So that business case starts with, again, the customer verbatims and that analysis around what are we solving for, and then how we can marry that with a sort of a roadmap of these high volume area moments of truth where we can meet customers. So, and we'd be happy to engage in that and do that every day.
Thank you. So I think on that note, we'll end today's webinar. Thank you, Richard, Frank, and all of our attendees today. We appreciate your time and look forward to speaking with you more in the future. Look for an email later today with a link to download the Gartner Cool Vendor and Smart Machines report. And in a day or two, I'll also follow up with the recording. If you have any questions or like to learn more about Creative Virtual, please feel free to contact us. You can see, switch a slide, Richard, please. You can see the contact information on the following slide, and we'll follow up with that contact information as well. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.